Hey everyone, I've got a special video for you today. I am interviewing Erin Booth. She built a freelance virtual assistant business and launched a few courses, has taught over 30,000 virtual assistants and freelancers how to build their business. And today we are chatting about the growth phase. So Erin, it is amazing to have you, and I want to dive right into it by talking about the moment where your freelance VA business covered your living expenses. So let's start there. If you don't mind sharing the numbers, where were we at? But then
Perfect.
what did it look like? What kind of clients were you working with? Things like that.
Perfect. I think people are often surprised to hear that at the time when I started my business in 2012, I purposely kept my living expenses egregiously low. When I tell people a number, they are shocked. I could survive and save on $3,000 a month. I know that sounds shocking, but at the time I had a very low rent.
Yep.
I was living abroad. I didn't have a car or car insurance. So there were certain ways that I was living, that I set up my life, that allowed me to have a low cost of living. Fortunately, when I started my business, I only needed a handful of clients. They covered all of those expenses.
Yep.
Now, as you can imagine, $3,000 a month is certainly, now I can't even fathom living on that. It's been so long.
Yep.
But I was lucky enough that right off the get-go, my business was covering the fundamentals.
Okay.
However, shortly thereafter, I realized if I, as a freelancer, would like to have any sort of savings account and buy a home and thrive and actually have a life, I would need to kind of 10x that income. So that growth period was tricky in that I was doing it all my own. And I really had to sit down and ask myself what I wanted in a business. I think most freelancers, you get to a point where you think, I am either going to have to hire my own subcontractors, I'm going to have to turn myself into an agency. Basically, how do you scale? And at the end of the day, I wanted to scale by myself. I decided ultimately against hiring subcontractors, hiring other people to work as a VA underneath me. What I did instead was go through a very painful growing period where I took on 18 clients.
Wow.
And I realized that was a major mistake. I winnowed back and realized that passive income was probably going to be the thing that I was going to invest my time in. And that's what I do nowadays. So I do still have some core clients, but I predominantly spend my time coaching other virtual assistants and selling online courses.
Amazing. So let's go back a bit to when you were still primarily services based.
Sure.
What were some of the tactics you were using to find those 18 clients? Was it all referrals? Were you using social media? I mean, the landscape obviously was very different, but what were the core tactics?
It was back then. I wish that I had at the time invested a little more. 10 years ago, if I could talk to my past self, I would say invest a little more time in your social media game. What I had actually done is build a business fully on referrals. So I had decided early on that if I was achieving phenomenal results, working hard for my clients, giving them a boost to their business, and what I think is kind of a game changer is that I decided as a VA not to focus solely on tasks that my clients needed. So, like you, I'm a service-based freelancer.
Yep.
But instead of just saying, give me some tasks that you need help with and I'll do them, I started asking my clients, what sort of things can I do that will grow your revenue? That was a game changer. My clients instantly became happier. And at a certain point, I didn't even have to ask them for referrals. They were giving them to me. It was totally, I didn't say a darn thing. They would say, you've done XYZ for me. I'm referring you to my other CEO friend in San Francisco, go talk. So it was even simple things like, if I had a client who was in sales, I would say, give me that piece. I'm going to find you leads. I'm going to do lead generation for you. I'll do cold emails for you and we'll go from there. But anything I could do to grow their revenue made me more valuable, which in turn helped grow my business very quickly.
Yeah, I love that. I want to highlight that lesson because this is something that I tell all freelancers is you make so much more money when the closer you get to revenue. And if you can do sales or literally bring in money, that's amazing. But even if you can't, if you can draw the line from your task to revenue and then do everything you can to shorten that line, that is going to help you so much, because not only will you justify your rates, which is obviously fantastic, but you can explain your value, because sometimes businesses don't need strict financial value out of every single task you do, but knowing how it eventually gets to financial value is so important. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm very happy about it. And so I'm curious, you got up to like 18 clients, maybe teetering on the burnout.
It was too many. Yes. Oh, yes.
What was the biggest you grew the services business to? You mentioned you were covering your expenses around $3,000 a month. What was the biggest healthy amount? Because 18, we don't want to burn ourselves out. What was the biggest healthy amount on services that you got?
Yes. 18 was definitely a burnout. I realized I was building a business that I was unhappy in because I was overworking myself. I eventually winnowed down to, I think at the time it was probably 5, maybe 6 people. So few teams, few companies with maybe 2 people per team. And you also might be surprised to hear that I think at the time it was about $6,000 a month, which still I had doubled it, but I was unhappy with it. Part of that was that as I'll say general VA, I think I had hit a point where I was charging as much as I could possibly charge without niching down. So essentially, as kind of a general virtual assistant, as a general freelancer, I didn't feel like I could charge anyone more than $35 an hour. And, I would charge them flat fees, but even though I felt like I was giving them more value, it's very hard to justify $50 an hour or more for doing someone's calendar or managing someone's inbox. So it really was another pivot again, where I felt like I had really capped out on the amount of money I could make. And I wasn't quite happy with that income either. So that's at the point when I really, really, really got serious about passive income and courses. And that is the thing that has doubled that income, if not more.
Amazing. So let's jump into that then. I know that you had at one point multiple micro courses that you've now put together into a bigger offering. So I want you to walk me through the product decision, so the product creation engine, and then I'm going to ask about the growth tactics. How did you actually how did you build your audience, get in the door? So let's talk about product first. What was the logic on creating your very first products that, a freelancer in your position, making enough, but not enough, might want to think about?
Yes. Oh, so the first product, it was a conversation I had with a fellow freelancer who I randomly met on some travels, and she had mentioned to me courses and how I could build products that were right for my audience. And the biggest takeaway that I had, and I hope this is true for anyone watching in your audience too, was that I really had to find a hole, so something that was not being fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, there are so many people like you and me teaching very similar concepts. There are people teaching very similar courses. There are people who are always going to be bigger, better, smarter, faster than you.
Definitely.
So when I first started to build out products for virtual assistants, I really had to think through what skills or core skills do I wish I had when I started in 2012? How can I help my audience reach my level faster, but also where are there topics that are lacking? And that was a big game changer for me. So I'll give you an example. It's very easy to do market research nowadays and kind of Google some of these courses, books, coaches for virtual assistants. I realized that everybody was telling you essentially how to start a business. So business fundamentals. Do you need an LLC? How to handle your freelance taxes, et cetera, et cetera. Something that nobody was talking about at the time was what online tools should we be using? What core skills, what are the most common asks that clients ask for, and how should you shore up those skills? So a lot of what I started to build out were what I considered virtual assistants 2.0. So I will let somebody else tell you how to start your business, but I'm going to show you the tools and the services that are going to help you scale your business faster. And those courses took off like wildfire.
Amazing. And I love the VA 2.0. I describe it as the new way of freelancing in the growth program, which is my program, all about this idea of like, it's not just about being a price taker and waiting for someone to tell you what to do. It's about being an entrepreneur and delivering that solution. And I know that you coach something very similar for all the VAs that you work with. So I love that. Now, tactics.
Yes.
I know that you work in a couple different ways with your courses. I know you're active on YouTube, and I'll link channel
Yes.
somewhere.
Somewhere.
Talk to me about tactics. What have you done successfully to grow the sales of your courses?
That's a great question. Again, a painful learning curve. My own social media marketing at the time when I started was somewhat lacking because I didn't have an audience yet. So I was actually building products at the same time as I was trying to build my own audience. And community building can be quite slow. It is absolutely worth it in the long run to be engaging and be a helpful resource, but it took time. And I was actually churning out products faster than my audience was growing. So I ended up turning to kind of an unpopular choice for courses in passive income. And I ended up investing my time in Udemy. It is a website where you can host your own content. However, they take a huge pay cut. They take about 50%. So Udemy in itself is interesting. And I really took a gamble with that particular platform. But my thinking was this: if I started to put, as you say, micro courses, so these courses on Udemy are anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, but they're typically 1 to 2 hours. So you will learn one fundamental core subject and go about your day. So by posting a handful, I mean, I think nowadays I have like 15 micro courses up there, but by posting quality plus quantity, it really helped my income explode. Because what Udemy did for me was, the more active I was on their platform, the more the more active I was on their platform, the more the algorithm sent people to me, the more people were discovering my courses on the platform. So it really helped in my advantage to have more, to have a higher quantity, excuse me. So I ended up selling on Udemy. I am shocked to say that even though they take a 50% cut of my income nowadays, I am making bare minimum $6,000 a month on Udemy, and that is fully passive income. Having said that, I have also over the years grown my audience, and I've grown my own social media platforms more strategically over the years. So it took time, but as you mentioned, I was able to take some of these smaller micro courses and package them in a different way on my own website. So what I've ended up doing is putting together bits and pieces, and I've added additional content, and I've put it together in what I'm calling a masterclass. It is so really, it's for the person who doesn't want to piece together certain pieces on Udemy. If you want me, I guess, to kind of lay out from start to finish how you start your business, from the growth on the floor to how to get your first clients to what tools to be using, I will map that out for you. And that is the kind of academy. So interestingly, that in and of itself does fairly well, and I don't market it that heavily. But what I love about that is that those two items attract very different people. There are certainly people all over the globe who in some cases can only afford a $10 a month. You know what I mean? They like $10 is like the top of the top for them. And that's great, because I love the theory of kind of this democratization of education. So the fact that they can access that content is fantastic. Versus, somebody else who just wants some serious hand-holding and they want me to lay it out for them. It's a very different person, because that person is willing to pay a lot more money than the person who can only do $10 on Udemy. So the two of those pieces together have been a game changer. And then, as you say, social media has been great, particularly YouTube. So YouTube really funnels a lot of people to my channels because I talk so much about the content that's related to my courses.
I love that. So the kind of three-pronged approach of the little Udemy algo hacking, we'll call it, having your own stuff that I imagine, if I'm making the assumption that all of your organic traffic flows to that website, right? Like that.
It does.
ErinBooth.com, I believe it is.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That in bio for any VAs looking for courses. And then you have YouTube as kind of the free, but it's a little lead gen, community building. And I think your channel is monetized, if I understand correctly.
It is, yes, which helps. Now, I will say it doesn't, it pays some bills. It covers my utilities, which I'm
Okay.
thrilled about.
Yeah.
But mostly I'm thrilled that that community is so engaged and they're only growing. It's only getting more engaged as time goes on.
Amazing. And so now that we have like the formula, well, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, profit, easy. You also
Easy.
have strategically chosen to maintain some clients. You still identify as a virtual assistant. You are
I
selling
do.
services. Can you talk about what decision factors came into that? If you're making great money on these courses, why still do the services?
Yes, that's a great question. I always thought that I would eventually pivot full time to passive income and teaching. And then I realized that by keeping some of my favorite core clients, so I've only kept 4 clients who I love and adore.
Okay.
It's kind of a twofold approach. Number one, I love that it keeps my own skills sharp and they're constantly giving me new things to learn about. So for example, one of them one day said, years ago said, will you run my social media? He was a brand new consultant, had just left a big firm, and he gave me the opportunity to learn a valuable and niche skill while being paid. So I find that by keeping these people, it's basically paid self-education. Whatever I'm learning from them, I can turn around and turn into a package course. So it's selfish. It's completely selfish. Keeps me sharp. And then the second thing is I hope you laugh when I say this, but still to this day, after 10 years of successfully growing a business and having solid, steady income for all these years, there is still a part of me, and I would be lying if I say I didn't have it. There's still a small part of me that always wonders, what if it all goes away tomorrow?
Yep.
It's a whole, I haven't been able to beat that yet. So yeah, so it's kind of a twofold selfish reason. I keep my skills sharp, but they're also kind of my fail-safe backup plan.
I love it. And that I say that all the time too. Freelancing is getting paid to learn. And I'm the exact same. I coach and I have a course, but I still maintain a roster of clients because it keeps me sharp. And you can coach better when you're in the game, that you're actually doing it in your own way.
Yes.
Amazing.
So, you know what, well said. When you're doing it, when you're in the game, that's what gives you your credibility too. You know what you're talking about and you have proof.
Yes. All right, last question. So let's say you're talking to a freelancer who is surviving and they're thinking of growing and they like the services, but they think they want to go into courses. What would be the first thing they should do or think about?
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. I could talk for 20 minutes on this in and of itself.
Great. All right.
I think second video. I think the first thing would really be market research. And I know this sounds so obvious, but it's not so obvious for a lot of people. Researching if your topic that you're thinking about teaching, is it in demand? Are people searching for it? Is there an interest? Is there a market for it? Are people actually buying this type of info? But just beyond that, of having some awareness that teaching is hard, that your first course will probably be horrible, to not be discouraged, because like anything, you will shore up your own skills. So if you create a course that initially doesn't sell, just don't give up. Hit that research hard, look inwards, and ask yourself too, do you have the, I'll say, tenacity to keep going? Because I think something that surprises people is that course creation is not a simple one and done. Passive income is in no means passive.
Never.
It takes 50 to 100 hours to create a good course, because you're creating, editing, you're it. So just to be mindful of that process and to go into it with an open mind and a lot of time.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was so insightful for me, and I hope for everyone watching this. If you have any questions for Erin, subscribe to her channel, again, linking somewhere, or leave questions as in the comments and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much.
Please do. Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you for having me.